It's about the hours spent getting everything just right. It's the attention to detail. Good just isn't good enough. It's the years spent on the water day after day. When you tie on a bait by Strike King, you're standing on the shoulders of legends.
You're going? Mm-hmm. Yes, you are, aren't you? Mark Zona, Michigan Outdoors News. And I'm going to talk to you about an old friend, okay? So, whoa, hey, what's going on in here? I'm going to talk to you about the old standard 3.5-inch tube. This is a 3.5-inch coffee tube. And there's actually a show that's going to air this spring where, remember last year when they lifted the catch and release to where we can all fish in the spring and the fall now? There is something about a 3.5-inch tube in cold water, snapping it outside of the grass. And it's really, this technique, it's an entire system. I use a really long rod. I'll use a 7 to 7.5 foot medium action spinning rod. And one of the other keys is I use all 8-pound fluorocarbon line. I do not use braid for this. And the reason why is I want that tube to get hung up in that deepest outside grass, that, let's call it 17 to 30 feet of water. And I really use a 3/8 ounce head 99% of the time. And what I want it to do is I want that tube to bog down in that grass. I want it to catch that grass and not slick through it. And you start bouncing your rod and snapping that tube, and you're basically trying to get that tube to snap out of that grass. And here's the amazing thing about it when that show airs. I ended up catching 5 that weighed probably 22 to 23 pounds in that show, and I never felt one bite. When that tube would bust through that grass, the only thing that I would feel is pressure. And the other thing that you do with that tube is when one locks in on it, just start loading that rod up. If you tend to hit them, like set the hook on them, you end up busting their mouth open and you lose a lot of fish, or you skin hook fish. If you just load your rod up and pull steady and then wind on them, you'll land a lot more fish. And the other thing about a tube, a 3.5-inch tube, if you look at all the tubes that I use, dude, I use 3 colors. I basically use a smoke, a green pumpkin, and a watermelon. What you're trying to get a tube to look like is a little immature bluegill, a little immature perch, or a crawdad. You know, I see 100 colors of tubes on the market. In fact, I have every single one of them behind me. Just use natural colors, let it bog down in that grass. Try not to get it to sweep far. Don't let it snap out of that grass far. And then when you feel that rod load up, just start reeling. And the amazing thing is, as many bass as that has caught on our Michiana lakes, it's a little bit overlooked now this spring. Throw the heavy tube.